Good afternoon. Welcome to Studio One of this Thursday, December 3rd, after a full and filling Thanksgiving break. Christmas season is officially here, a sure sign that those dreaded finals are just around the corner. I'm Tom Buehring. Up ahead on this half hour, founder of UND's Center for Aerospace Sciences, Dean and Professor John Odegard. Also, Dr. Richard Leigh will discuss his perspective on the controversial subject of abortion. First, however, we'll go to the news desk with Courtney Bateman. Courtney?
Thank you, Tom. In an attempt to quiet criticism of the Arms Reduction Treaty, President Reagan said today any treaty he signs will not allow for a Soviet buildup. Reagan said the treaty will provide for effective verification, including on-site inspections before and during the reductions and short-notice inspections afterwards. Reagan also said the agreement will require the Soviets to eliminate 4 times as many weapons as the United States. In addition, Reagan intends to ask Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev to send a firm date for Soviet troops to leave Afghanistan and to end military aid to countries in Africa and Central America. Gorbachev and Reagan will meet next week to sign a nuclear arms reduction agreement. Besides the treaty with the Russians, the Reagan administration has been busy working out another agreement, this one with Canada, for free trade between the two countries. It may not sound as spectacular, but as Studio One's Kelly Evenson reports, it has been just as difficult and, in a way, just as controversial.
Working out the free trade agreement between the U.S. and Canada is much like nuclear disarmament, according to John O'Leary, Director of Community Development in Grand Forks. The theory sounds good, it's easy to talk about the issue, everybody nods and smiles and thinks it's a good thing for their country, but when it comes down to the actual signing of an agreement, different political forces come into play.
But when we translate that into the individual impacts of what it means to a specific industry, all of a sudden you find that industry rallying all their horses, and they've got their lobbyists working against it. As soon as they find out that Canadian product is now going to be cheaper than American product because of the free trade agreements.
For example, removing wood duties will mean that Canadian oak and cedar will be less expensive than an American source to companies manufacturing furniture in the United States. This doesn't sit well with states like Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, which could lose their markets. O'Leary believes that the free trade agreement will eventually be put into motion, but by the time the lobbyists get through with it, it won't be a true free trade agreement because of exceptions and protections attached to it. Grand Forks could benefit from free trade because of its proximity to Winnipeg, which has a population larger than that of our entire state, making it a potentially tremendous market for many of the products produced in Grand Forks. Products which up until then are uncompetitive in the Canadian market because of duties that are placed on them.
Negotiations for a trade agreement have been going on for years, with deadlines for a final agreement postponed numerous times. But like nuclear disarmament, incentives in the political arena may speed up those talks. Kelly Evenson, Studio One News.
North Dakota's political battles became a little more defined yesterday when House Majority Leader Earl Strindon said he will run for the U.S. Senate. The announcement came from 2 of Strindon's supporters, and Strindon confirmed it. Strindon joins 2 other Republicans who have announced they want to run against Senator Quentin Burdick next November. Strindon was considered a possible candidate for governor before yesterday. That's the news. Tom?
Thank you, Courtney. If you're looking for something to put you in the Christmas mood, the UND Music Department is presenting its annual Old English Christmas Feast this Friday and Saturday night at 7 o'clock. This Madrigal Dinner Theater presents a brief return to Elizabethan England at Christmas time. The night will be filled with fine food, minstrels, and lords and ladies of the court. Tickets are still available for the Christmas feast and can be purchased at the Chester Fritz or any Centig outlet. And if you're not quite in the mood for the Renaissance, the University Program Council is showing Pink Floyd The Wall at the Aerospace Atmospherium Friday night. Tickets are available at the door and at the Union for both the 7 o'clock and 9:30 shows. Meteorologist Jay Searles joins us for a look at the weather. Jay?
Thank you, Tom. We woke up to a nice surprise this morning as we had some light snow overnight. As much as 2 inches of snow fell in Grand Forks, heavier amounts to the south, with Fargo receiving as much as 4 inches. Taking a look at the map, or rather the current conditions at 4 o'clock in the Grand Forks area, the temperature is 17 degrees, the winds are northwest at 10 miles per hour, and the relative humidity is 74%. Now taking a look at the map across the nation, an area of high pressure in the Gulf of Mexico is bringing clear skies to much of the southeast, except for some dense coastal fog from southern Texas up through Louisiana. Another area of high pressure over the desert southwest, over Arizona, is bringing some clear skies, but very cool temperatures, as temperatures are in the 20s there. Some fog along the California coast, An area of a storm system has moved in from the Pacific into the northwest, spreading some light rain and showers to the region. The big thing with this system is the winds are very strong off the Pacific, bringing some gale-force warnings for much of the coast of Oregon and northern California. Into our region, an area of low pressure that caused our snow has moved into northern Illinois, spreading snow now across southern and central Wisconsin and northern Iowa. Winds behind this system are light and out of the north, but some cold air in central Canada, where temperatures are still below zero this afternoon, will begin to leak southward as the high pressure begins to build in. That's what it looks like across the United States today. I'll be back a little bit later in the program with the Red River Valley weekend forecast. Tom?
Thank you, Jay. A chance for you to cheer the Fighting Sioux hockey team this weekend as the Sioux go up against Northern Michigan at the Winter Sports Center. Game time is 7:35 both Friday and Saturday night. In other Sioux sports, the women's basketball team will play Bemidji State Friday night, while the men's team takes on the Badgers in Madison, Wisconsin. And for those of you who need some organization in your work, UND's Department of Continuing Education is holding a seminar on how to run a more efficient office. The seminar will be Friday from 8:30 to 4:30. For more information, you can call the Department of Continuing Education. When we return, we'll talk with the founder of one of the top aviation departments in the nation, John Odegard.
There was a time when an 18-year-old couldn't vote. A time when there was no meaningful way for young adults to express their opinions. What changed that? The 26th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution, the words we live by.
Oh, those fabulous 50s. Crazy, crazy kids. Hula hoops. And yes, the golden years of television. Jack Benny.
Here I am, Rochester.
Jimmy Durante.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash. Wherever you are.
George Burns.
Oh, yeah.
Danny Thomas. Abbott and Costello.
Well, who's on first?
Game shows galore. And lots more.
A little sneak snack?
The golden years of television. Every week on NCTV.
Welcome back to Studio One. Our first guest started out in a small office in Gamble Hall as an accounting instructor. Within 9 years as a faculty member at UND, John Odegard single-handedly built the aviation department into the national leader of collegiate aviation education and atmospheric research, finding a home for it in the ever-changing Center for Aerospace Science building. We welcome to Studio One Professor John Odegard. John, it's good to have you with us.
Tom, thank you very much.
Not to put you on the spot, or even Jay on the spot, but watching the weather, of which to a certain degree you in some ways are indirectly responsible for, is that rewarding watching students work?
Oh, it's always rewarding to see the success of students in the aviation program with all the students we've had that have gone through the program, moved on into the industry and are flying airplanes and working in TV studios and so forth. It's always exciting. I guess that's one of the real rewards to be a part of higher education.
Talking about the distance that you put between an old accounting office and in the position you now have, which, again, directly is heightening the standards and qualities of the commercial airline industry, could any faculty member do that?
Certainly. Anybody could do that. I think the real great advantage I've had, Tom, is that I have had the opportunity of working with some really fine people. And I guess if we've had one major success that has been responsible for the growth of the aviation program and the whole Center for Aerospace Sciences, it's some tremendous faculty, Don Smith, Les Severance, George Hammond, now David Webb, many of the people who have joined us from across the United States, and they've been the real key to success and the quality of students that we've attracted.
Most people put the progression on you, the success of the progression on you. What would you say about yourself is the key ingredient that contributed to the success?
Well, I appreciate, I get an awful lot of compliments and I get a lot of credit that I really don't think I deserve, because the great success of the program has been the people, it's been the students, it's been the support of the university. We've had a president who has gone out on the limb, who has an entrepreneurial spirit, I guess a little bit as I might, and he has been willing to take risks. He's had some vision as to where he sees things developing in the future. And he's had the courage to move forward on it. And without that kind of an administration, and without the people that are backing him up, well, we certainly couldn't have done what we've done in the Center for Aerospace Sciences, and so it's been a great effort.
And vision is everything. You have circled yourself around some bold visionaries, and timing too. Now, I would assume it's no coincidence to the fact that there is a national pilot shortage, and right now, beautiful timing, we're putting together a pilot training program.
Tom, we've been working with forecasts of what was going to happen in the airline industry, and all of the press and all the media publicity that's happening on pilot shortages and the things we hear now, of course, are things that people have been working with, forecasting and looking at in the past. We knew it was going to happen. We didn't know it would happen as fast as it has, because people didn't know and couldn't forecast the growth, the very rapid growth of the aviation industry and what happened in the airline industry because of deregulation. And so deregulation caused a tremendous surge in commuter airlines, regional airlines, and of course a number of new domestic carriers. That caused a big bubble that wasn't totally forecast, but overall we knew that on a long-range, long-term basis there were going to be some great needs. And they're there, and they're not just national needs, those are international needs. In fact, in the free world there's a shortage of about 200,000 pilots that's going to exist between now and the year 2010. So there's some super opportunities for young people. It's a great career if you happen to be interested in that, and we're kind of at the right place at the right time, and our venture with Northwest Airlines has been very opportune for us.
Now, not only are you developing a curriculum to fly pilots and to train pilots, but you are also originating much of the curriculum that will be used.
That's right. We're developing something that's never been done before. Nobody has ever said, how do you prepare an airline pilot from the very first day when you shake a guy's hand to give him the first hour of duel? Nobody's ever done that. We are completing now a very in-depth thing that's called a task analysis with a team of people made up of about 7 or 8 PhDs, 5 chief pilots from regional airlines and Northwest Airlines, and quite a few other federal officials, and then a number of our faculty and our chief flight instructors. And we're looking at every single task that needs to be learned, experienced, from the day that you first step into an airplane until the day you fly a DC-9 as a co-pilot. So we're completing that task analysis, and it's called an ab initio airline pilot program. And as soon as that's done, then we're going to say, how do we teach all those experiences? Live stand-up, lecture, media, TV, computer-based instruction, part task trainers, simulators, airplanes. How do we do it? How do we package the whole thing? And how do we then safely and efficiently prepare the future airline pilots that are going to fly some very sophisticated airplanes, highly electronic, automatic, heavy artificial intelligence. It's a new world they're going to be operating in, and nobody has sat down and worked that out. And now we're doing it, and so that's going to be an exciting project. That will be done sometime this spring, and by next fall we will become the first place that we are aware of in the world that will teach people how new airline pilots will fly the day they start.
A very close associate of yours told me that John can sell snowballs to Eskimos. How much salesmanship has been involved? And let me ask you this. Was it more difficult selling the program, or was it more difficult selling the concept that the program could be done here in Grand Forks?
It's not difficult selling the program, because all of a sudden the airlines realize they're going to have massive retirements. You're going to have a shortage of 35,000 pilots in the United States. The commuter airlines are having between 100 and 150% turnover per year. It costs $35,000 to $38,000 just for a regional airline to train each of those pilots that leave 4 months later. So the need was there. It's not a great job to sell that when you know the need's there. The more difficult thing is living and attempting to develop an entire industry as we are in the state of North Dakota, because North Dakota has a bad image, and it's a really improper, unfortunate image. For example, Florida, you immediately see and think of lovely ladies on the beach and volleyball and sand and swimming, and it's all wonderful. The fact is, about 6-7 months of the year, the weather is so unbearable because of humidity and heat that flying is very difficult. When in fact, we have 8, 9, 10 months of very excellent flying weather. And if you look at the total number of VFR days, visual flight rule days, when the sun comes out or when you can fly an airplane without flying on instruments, we have more VFR good flying days in North Dakota, particularly in Grand Forks, than you have anywhere in the country with the exception of Tucson and Phoenix. Because in Florida you've got a lot of fog and you have a lot of other thunderstorms and a lot of other problems. So we take a bad rap on image. So when you start talking about running a world training center in North Dakota, and you're talking about bringing people from all over Europe and the Middle East and Africa and different places, they just can't imagine that you could do this in North Dakota. When they come, they meet the people, they see the facilities, there's no question you can do it.
It is exciting to see North Dakota take a lead into the future.
Tom, thank you, and thanks for having me on your show.
You bet, John. Good to have you. UND Aerospace Science founder John Odegard.
Lou Gossett is annoyed.
Hey, you know, we've got some real bad guys in this country. Abusing public lands, defacing parks, robbing historic sites. These are our lands, yours and mine. You know, the good guys. Now, you gonna let a bunch of bad guys run us off our public lands? Or are you gonna help save the lands? Let's show these bad guys that the good guys always win.
Write Take Pride in America. Post Office Box 1339, Jessup, Maryland 20794.
Your answers. Our next guest has been personally harassed at his home and his office since he began his controversial medical practice. In 1973, Dr. Richard Leigh performed his first abortion in his Grand Forks clinic. 14 years later, it has become the bulk of his practice, and his clinic performs the most abortions in the state. Studio One welcomes Dr. Richard Leigh. Dr. Leigh, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tom.
Perhaps maybe even a clarification on the fact that you have been practicing for 14 years. The harassment really hasn't come up until maybe 3 or 4 years?
No, just the last 3 years they've been picketing, and it's gotten to be more than picketing, which is why I've started a legal action for injunctive relief.
What is a tribute, do you think, to the last 3-4 years of harassment? Why not earlier?
Well, that's kind of hard to explain. You know, I was doing more actually then than I am now in numbers, and I suppose with President Reagan giving them vocal support, they've just become more aggressive. But it's really a shame, because it's the choice is a right of the people to make themselves, and if they don't like the choice, they should change the laws. But what they do is they end up making them feel very guilty about the decision they've made, and while they don't change those who want to come from having the procedure done, they do increase the mental anguish they go through.
As a fifth-generation resident of Grand Forks, the picketers may not be the only thing that has seen a change in your profession. What other type of changes have you had to go through medically and that have somewhat interrupted your personal life?
Well, when this began, I had a pretty satisfactory obstetrics and gynecological practice. Of course, that's subsided as this has gone on. You get busy doing one thing, and you don't have the energy for the other. And so I quit doing obstetrics about 8 years ago, and the gynecological side, the surgical side, just gradually faded off as the referral base diminished.
Could a smaller town abortionist, do you think, Dr. Leigh, find a more favorable liking if he would involve himself in activity of strongly crusading for prevention?
I don't think so. I've tried to talk to the people who are against abortion a number of times, and they have a very pigeonholed view of the whole thing, and or funnel vision view of the whole thing, and they aren't interested in any of the peripheral problems that are involved, to my experience anyway. I don't think it would make any difference whatsoever. I'm active in the community, but it's...
Abortions locally, are they on the increase? How do they differ from national trends?
Oh, I think we probably reflect national trends. There has been a change in attitudes and values over the last 15 years. All you have to do is look at the campuses and see how different students dress and maintain themselves today than they did 15 years ago, and you realize that. I don't think AIDS, well, AIDS probably has a little bit of a break on them, but I'm not sure that's a big factor either, really.
You have mentioned, too, that inflation tends to tamper with those type of statistics. Well, inflation makes people responsible?
There's a philosophy that, you know, in more rapid inflation, people start living just for today and heck with tomorrow, and that breeds a mental set that will let them take more chances, I think.
Do you ever find yourself so consumed in the debate of social issues, such as abortion, that all of a sudden your medical motivation for being involved in this practice switches from a medical assistance to trying to prove a point or drive home a point?
Not really. You'd be surprised how little I think about the controversy when I'm not actually being faced with the picketers. I've grown. I've had to make my own emotional adjustments and peace with what I'm doing, and I'm very satisfied that what I'm doing is worthwhile and valuable and necessary. It hasn't really changed a great deal.
Mm-hmm. Would we be surprised as an abortionist as to some of the advice that you may give and maybe suggesting people do anything but abort a pregnancy?
Oh, certainly. I never recommend abortion as a first choice. I have always said that it's, it may be the best avenue left for the particular individual, and I'm sure that nobody comes to me because they think this is a pleasurable trip. It's very difficult, and that's why I get somewhat upset at the picketers, because these people already have had a difficult time making up the decision. It's their decision and their responsibility, and they have a perfect right to do this. And they will feel badly in varying degrees before, during, and after, and that's something you can't predict. But life does funny things to us, and we all have to make choices and decisions and have to live with them, and that's the way it is.
How much, Dr. Leigh, are you involved with the patients after the abortion?
Well, actually, very little, mostly because most of them come from outside the city, and the distance makes that impossible to be that involved. Though I do try and keep track of any complications that might occur, and we do offer ourselves available for anybody if they need us afterwards. You
have recently advertised yourself too as an allergist. Does the one practice seem to hinder or assist the other?
Well, the abortions certainly don't help any, and primarily because I think at the picketing, my reasoning has always been that there are over half, maybe 80% of people who either approve of the right to choose, or abortions, that is, or they are indifferent to it. And out of that, there are more than enough people for me to build more practice than I can handle. So the only negative that the picketers have had on me is that they have made some of these people who don't want to put up with the harassment stay away. They haven't had any impact at all on the number of abortions I do. I'm well convinced of that from observing things for the last few years.
Dr. Richard Leigh, thank you for taking your time.
Pleasure. Glad to be here, Tom.
Appreciate it. After this break, we'll take one last look at the weather, so stay with us.
How does this man consistently draw 2,000 students a year to New York's most talked about film class? How does he attract the finest creative talent in the film world? Guests like Woody Allen, Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese, Dustin Hoffman, Deborah Winger, William Hurt, Steven Spielberg, Robin Williams, Robert Redford, Shirley MacLaine, just to name a few? Why do his students describe him as brilliant, charismatic, and his class provocative, inspiring, exhilarating? Find out for yourself. Richard Brown's Screening Room, a whole new way to look at movies. Watch it on NCTV.
How do you find out when an administration is corrupt? How do you find out when a government is hiding the truth? How do you find out about those who would like you not to find out? To become better informed about the role of a free press and how it protects your rights, contact the First Amendment Center.
A couple of events coming up during the remainder of December. First, the Judy Ray Dancers will have a recital December 12th and 13th at the Chester Fritz Auditorium. Also at the Fritz on December 15th, the toe-tapping Broadway classic Singin' in the Rain. And to tell us one last time if we'll need our umbrellas or parkas is meteorologist Jay Searles. Jay?
Thank you, Tom. I don't think we'll need any umbrellas tomorrow, but most likely we'll need a parka. Take a look at the surface map for tomorrow morning. A large area of high pressure will have pushed into central Minnesota, bringing with it some very cold temperatures. Central Canada will not get above zero tomorrow morning, and temperatures will be well below zero across much of Minnesota. In our region, temperatures will be about 3 degrees. In parts of Montana and western Wyoming, temperatures will be in the 30s as an area of low pressure begins to move our way, spreading some snow to the region. As this system moves in, we'll probably have a few more clouds. For tonight, skies will be clear we'll have a low of 8 degrees. Winds will be from the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour with no chance of precipitation. Tomorrow will be mostly clear with a high of 30 degrees. Winds will become southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour with no chance of any precipitation. Saturday, skies will be partly cloudy with a high of 29 degrees. Sunday will be mostly cloudy again with a high in the upper 20s. Tom?
Thank you, Jay. We'd like to thank our guests, Dr. John Odegard and Dr. Richard Leigh, for being part of us today. And this is the last Studio One for this season, but we will return in February as we start our third season. From all of us here at Studio One, thanks for joining us.